everybody, this is John for MTG Nexus coming at you with a user-submitted deck list. As a friendly reminder, if you like modern content, especially lightning bolt-based content, please consider subscribing to our channel, as we aim to be the most informative lightning bolt-based modern channel with a sprinkling of Pioneer here and there for YouTube, for modern and Pioneer on YouTube. So, wow. Alright, so I'm going to preface this by saying I am not going to be playing a full league with these decks. People are submitting decks kind of left and right for me to take a look at, and I told Steve here that I'd take a look at his list, play a couple matches, maybe provide a little bit of feedback. So I'll probably be playing maybe 2 matches in the 2-man queues. This is a mono white aggressive Death and Taxes-ish humans deck, sort of. So you're combining a lot of elements that make Death and Taxes kind of disruptive in a format like Legacy. You're including the aggressive human package with some disruptive creatures, some Stoneforge Mystic package, and then more white hate cards in the sideboard. But unlike traditional Death and Taxes, you're not playing garbage cards like Leon and Arbiter and hoping to cheese people out. Instead, you're trying to rely on a little bit more aggression and a little bit more overall high-quality creatures. To that end, you have the Champion of Perish, Thalia's Lieutenant, Stoneforge Mystic, kind of humans aspect of games to, well, aggressive aspect of games to kind of close out games. You also have things like Giver of Runes, Thalia Guardian of Thraben, Thalia Heretic Cathar, Ranger Captain of Eos to disrupt what your opponent's doing. You have Hero of Bladehold as a massive closer. If this thing hits the battlefield and gets a swing in, the game's probably over, because it comes in, it attacks 2/1/1 tokens, and they get +1/+0 until end of turn because of Battle Cry, and everything else attacking gets +1/+0. And Luminous Broodmoth is just kind of like a anti-sweeper measure in addition to Selfless Spirit. And it also, blanks a good bit of your opponent's removal. True Believer here is kind of a mini Leyline of Sanctities, so your burn opponent or your discard opponent has to deal with this before they can basically start hitting you with discard spells or burn spells. Knight of the Holy Nimbus is an interesting one. It's a 2/2 flanker. For those of you who don't know, basically flanking is a mechanic that says whenever it attacks, if creatures blocking it don't have flanking, they get -1/-1 until end of turn. And then it has a self-regeneration that only opponents can pay 2 to keep this from happening. So a lot of little disruptive things going on here. Mana base, obviously, lots of plains, some Field of Ruins, a Ghost Quarter, a Cavern, Castle Arden Vales, a couple Sunbaked Canyons, so a lot of utility out of a monocolored mana base. And then 4 copies of Aether Vial here to kind of tie it all together. So even though you're only running 21 lands, you're not quite hit as hard as in terms of mana. And then Sword of Light and Shadow, not always the most relevant in terms of protection, but this allows you to rebuy your threats and gain some life. And obviously Batterskull is just the king of equipment for Stoneforge Mystic in this format. Now we get to the sideboard. The sideboard is scattered, but all makes sense. Soul Guide Lanterns here, pretty good for any type of graveyard shenanigans. You are a little bit using Luminous Broodmoth to keep your creatures from dying, so that's why Steven here chose not to run Rest in Peace. Damping Sphere, pretty good against any type of combo in Tron. Sorcerer Spyglass can stop certain Planeswalkers, certain other activated abilities. The 3rd copy of Path to Exile, as there are 2 paths in the main to help deal with problematic creatures. Celestial Purge, pretty good against Jund, Burn, etc. 2 copies of Disenchant. As we saw with our Burn League, it's nice to have things to blow up certain other things, whether it be mana from Ad Nauseam, whether it be problematic enchantments or artifacts. just basically a little bit of extra disruption in some spots. Spirit of the Labyrinth, this is a card that it's a little bit fragile, but it really can be problematic for a lot of players. This can be good against Bant Snow, it can be good against a lot of things. Just a 3-1 attacking body is nice, and then you tack on that each player can't draw more than one card each turn. 2 copies of Core Firewalker help against the burn matchup primarily, as well as prowess. Eidolon of Rhetoric, this is here to, along with the Damping Sphere, to hate on any type of storm or any type of thing casting a bunch of spells. 1 copy of Mirren Crusader, because it's just a house against Jund if they don't have Bolt, and a lot of other green-based decks. Nevermore when you need to shut down combo. And then Worship's just a beating for any type of creature-based deck if they can't remove all your creatures. So the sideboard is a lot of 1s and 2s, but they all serve... There's multiple cards that serve similar purposes, but without going overboard on any one particular effect. So, seems like a well-balanced sideboard, especially for a Death and Taxes-ish style deck. So, we'll see how it does. Let's get into some 2-man queues. Here for match number 1 against House of Mana MTG. Wish our opponent good luck. Our new avatar here, written Siri Inseparable from the treasure chest we got from the recent Burn League. And let's take a look at this hand. So, yeah, seems reasonable. We have Ether Vial on 1, opponent going to 5 mana. Okay, so Teleria West, could be Amulet, could be any number of other things. Yep, definitely Amulet. Okay. So, going to play Thalia's Lieutenant here. As much as I want to get Giver of Runes down, I'd like to use this ability. Yes. Okay. Trigger that. Trigger the pump. And then maybe our LD can control the way here. All right. There's a Zusa. Lost, but seeking. Do you have any other land drops? You do not. Alright. So, with this ability on the stack, I'm going to go ahead and activate Ether Vial. Put in Giver of Runes. Another Giver of Runes, huh? Gonna play Selfless Spirit here. Just hold up Ghost Quarter. Start swinging for the fences here. Between the disruption, we might get there. How about I hit my no button? Okay. That's kind of annoying. Is your last card in hand a Titan? Are we just dead? Yeah, we're just dead here. So I can haste the Titan and then... That's mildly frustrating. Alright, so... Against Titan... D-Sphere, Damping Sphere isn't great, but it's fine. Nevermore, obviously, pretty decent. Mirran Crusader is pretty decent. Worship's not great because they just have the Valakut gun your creatures down plan. Path to Exile, not fantastic, but it does clear out their problematic creatures. Spyglass, no. Soulguide Lantern, no. Worship, eh. Cards that aren't particularly great in this matchup. True Believers probably isn't fantastic here. Thalia Heretic Cathar seems really good. And then try it like that. His hand's really kind of slow and doesn't really disrupt the opponent much. If we were to guarantee a second land, this hand would be defensible, but I think it's just too clunky. I think I would need to rip land for this hand to be particularly good. This hand's far more defensible. Put back. Ranger Captain. And Field of Ruin, question mark. And then we're really kind of counting on this Ether Vial here to pull us through. I guess the 7-card Amulet hand, that's probably not quite good enough, but, you know, gotta do what we gotta do. Yes. Kanjo Castle. Decent amount of pressure for a 5-card hand, but still not, like, fantastic. Continue to tick this up. Let's play this main phase. Dryad. It's to Titan us next turn, which is unfortunate. suppose it's possible it was actually supposed to bring in Disenchant as opposed to Path. Don't think that's quite lethal, but still it's a lot of damage. Alright, do you have Titan? Okay. Okay. One, two, three, four, five, six. So even Ghost quartering themselves. Alright, unfortunately we lost. So no answer to the Titan, and they can just make more and more and more and more zombos, so. Alright, on to the next match. And we're back for our second match with Mono White Steel. So we're on the draw here. I don't think this hand does enough without Ether Vial, so I think this unfortunately is a mulligan. This hand also is a mulligan. Going to 4. Going to 3. I guess we keep. True Believer, True Believer. Give her a rune's path. Done. Gonna concede the game to hide information. Snow, so we can presume Spirit of the Labyrinth's probably pretty decent here. Mirren Crusader might be decent. Nevermore might be okay. Sorcerer's Spyglass, don't know about that one. Damping Sphere, no. Soul God Lantern. Likely they have Uro, so we'll bring those in. Eidolon, I guess it could stop Snapcaster range, but I think that's just getting too cute. And then I think once again True Believer could come out in this matchup. All these make some amount of sense. Path to Exile, not the most exciting, but I think is fine. Might be able to board these out. Yes, I know they have Coatl, but I'm not sure how I really want to be trading up on giving them mana. And then I think I just trade these out. Much as it's nice to answer Uro and such, I just don't think we want to be pathing their creatures. And then Charming Prince might be the other cut here. Like, maybe I'm being... Like, this is the danger of playing somebody else's brew. Is it's entirely possible that I'm being too conservative with my mulligans. And just, I'm supposed to keep those 1-landers with the 2/1 drops. And if we get Force of Negation here, we're going to hate our lives. Alright. Alright, so play Soul God Lantern. Pass turn. It's kind of awkward, right? Because we really want to play out this Giver of Runes, but at the same time, or both Giver of Runes, but at the same time, do we really want to forego playing our Thalia against the... There's a Fatal Push. I think we're supposed to play Thalia here. Play out the second Aether Vial. I wonder if they're considering forcing this. Wow. Okay. A little bit punished for not playing Thalia, but such is life. Is there Sultai Snow? Even if we get to exile Uro here, they're still getting a decent amount of value off things. Yes, play Thalia as Lieutenant here. Pump up the jam. Waddle, fortunately, isn't particularly good against Thalia. Just a chump blocker, basically. Once again, possible I'm not supposed to play that main phase, but I think the extra point of damage is somewhat relevant. No plays. Why'd they fetch main phase? I guess they're worried about Leonin Arbiter. Maybe that's like one advantage of playing this style of deck. How about I hit my no button on that one? No Fatal Push for you. Sure. Sure. would you let me untap? I was going to say, that seems foolish to let me untap with Giver of Runes. We pump this up now that we have a third or second land. With one card in hand. Sort of like the shadow is resolving at least. I could have Cryptic Command up here, which is unfortunate, but such is life. I still think we leave it on 3 for now. Stone Forge Mystic. Get back Giver of Runes. I like to use this ability. Yes. Play Giver, no runes. Pass turn. Nothing. Okay. Sure. It's gonna never gonna pump that up yet. Castle Ardenvale. Thalia Guardian of Thraben, yes. Put you to whatever. Play that out first, because this will bait out a counterspell. Play Stoneforge Mystic. Grab Batter Skull, because I can. And Uro would put you to 7. 1, 2. Okay. 3 mana, draw 2 cards. Sure. That's lethal, right? This is a human, pumps this to 6. And then one of these two get through for the 7th point. So I don't want to show this, but at the same time, and I can't do that because Giver of Runes. Oh boy. Well, just pass here. Kind of awkward that our own Giver of Runes is kind of used against us here in some ways. Okay, go to 10, sure. No blocks. Hear a voice in battle cry, pass bout machine. Fact or fiction? Well, fudge. How many snow permanents do they have? Okay, well, I mean, I think this is a pretty easy split here. Okay. Yep. Either fact or fiction or bring back aggro. I think they can do both, actually, can't they? Cool. Alright, we'll be back in a sec with the wrap-up. Alright, we're back with the wrap-up with Steven's mono-white, aggressive, death and taxes-ish deck here. So, thought process on this deck. I don't think we played two particularly good matchups. I think Amulet Titan, obviously not the best matchup for another creature-based deck. You know, in his write-up for the thing, which will be linked in the thing, he says it's a 50-50 matchup, and you know there was a draw there. Was it game 2 or game 3, where we mulliganed to like 3 or 4, and then put up like enough pressure to almost kill them through a Titan on 4. So I think the deck obviously is very powerful. It's very capable of putting a lot of pressure on the opponent, and the disruptive elements can keep them off balance just long enough potentially to kill them. And I certainly saw that in some spots. We almost backed Sultai Snow, which is, I think, might have supplanted Bant Snow as the best deck in the format, or at least best because of the mirror match. And we gave them a run for their money, but their Factor Fiction found a Dread of Winter. So I see the positive aspects of the deck, and I'm not questioning the decisions, the cards, any of that kind of stuff. The one thing I would say is, much like any other Death and Taxes deck or decks that are relying on Ether Vial, is sometimes the mana count feels a little low. And if you don't have Ether Vial in your hand, your one land hands are just almost unkeepable most of the time. I understand the disruption standpoint of like Field of Ruins and Ghost Quarters and whatnot, but one of the things is just like, while that is a relatively small sample size, we did have to mulligan hard a couple of games, and I do think that cost us in games that are effectively resource management. And I think the other element of the deck is there's a lot of customization to this deck, and I think that is a positive for something along those lines. And for a mono white aggressive creature deck, I like the feeling of this style of deck a lot better than the traditional Death and Taxes, Leonin Arbiter kind of nonsense. The sword choice I understand for the thing of the deck, but with Snow being the top deck in the format, a Feast and Famine somewhere in the 75 is not a terrible idea, allowing you to attack through Uros and such. The awkwardness of Sword of Light and Shadow and your Giver is a little annoying, but not too much you can do about that, I suppose. And then obviously Feast and Famine would have been pretty good against Amulet Titan. I think it would have single-handedly won that game as well. So it's kind of funny that even though we mulliganed a redonkulous amount in a couple of games, that like one card in the 75 or one card in the 60 even could have potentially won the game against Titan. And then Snow, Snow's so much card advantage, and Dread of Winter is just such a beating. I don't know. They got a little bit lucky there, but we weren't necessarily putting on a lot of pressure. We did mulligan a little bit, so I still stand by my decision to mulligan to concede game 1 when we mulligan to 3. I do think information there was more important than trying to win a game when we were that low on resources against a deck that just grinds that hard. So the deck is definitely fun, and I can definitely see how it functions. I just, as a player that like really prioritizes consistency, and the reason why I play decks like Burn and Jund and that kind of Phoenix, the decks that I tend to gravitate towards, I think, are more consistent more than anything else. And so for this deck that just obviously has a very high power level, and maybe we were just on the bad end of variance there a little bit, but you playing colorless lands even in your monocolored deck isn't free. So that's pretty much all I gotta say. We did see the aggressive starts that he mentions in his premiere. Probably played 2 not very good matchups. So I think all in all, the deck certainly showed itself well for the circumstances it was put under. So props to Steven, and I wish we could have given you some better games, man. But I do think that I can definitely see the strength and the reasoning behind the build. Once again, the only thing I think I mentioned before, and Steven said he had his own reasons for not including the card, and I think I'm even more reinforced by this, by the way the game played out, was I think Knight of the Holy Nimbus could easily be replaced by Knight of the White Orchid. There's a lot of spots where grabbing a Plains would have been nice, so still some food for thought, but deck's pretty sweet. And maybe find some way to get a Sword of Feast and Famine in there with kind of Amulet and Sultai and some other stuff. And Feast and Famine's pretty good against Jund, too. So, anywho, this has been John for MTG Nexus, and as I was saying at the beginning of the video, I will take a look at people's decks if they ask me to, and kind of give me some explanation behind the deck, etc., or if I find it interesting. But I'm not going to give it a full-blown, like, league and such. If you want a full-blown league and you want me to break down the deck and try to work on it, unfortunately, donations are the thing, but in terms of just, like, I'll take a look at a list like this, briefly, run a couple matches. This isn't really too much of a strain on my time, whereas a full league and actually play the deck, more reps, more chances to see the deck, unfortunately, it's going to cost you the $15 donation. So, anywho, this has been John for MTG Nexus. Hope everybody has a great day.